Don't forget to tag me, Jim.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Portsmouth Coffee Talk. I'm Sim Overton, and I'm here with my fellow host, Leah Stitt. And we have some special guests here this morning, and we'll get to that in a minute. Leah will introduce them to you. But as usual, every time we come on, I always have these little audio, sometimes video introductions. But let me play this for you and gives our guests a little time to wake up and everything. But hold on, I'll play it right now.
We talk about violence, it's important that we talk about what violence is. Violence, especially in our organization, we see as more the outcome. Violence is the after effect. When we're sick, violence is the cause, but it's not what caused the sickness in the first place. So with that being said, a lot of what we focus on, what we need to be focusing more on as a society is what we call the root causes and the root contributors. Violence is not just, when someone actually does the end result and pick up a gun or the afterwards accounts. But violence is the homelessness that we're seeing in our communities. The violence is the lack of guidance counselors that we have in our schools. Violence is the lack of mental health resources that our young people have. Violence is, the programs that we don't have when our mothers and fathers aren't available because they're working shifts that barely cover the minimum wage to, barely afford housing in New York. So, a lot of what we focus on as an organization is really giving kids a purpose and a passion. We believe everyone in life has, things that they're gifted with, but the issue is in our cities and our communities, we're not able to access those tools and we're not able to really visualize ourselves outside of our surroundings. And like a lot of my panelists said, a lot of it is what beyond the status quo, what we're currently being done. A lot of our young people have not left, even their borough, much less their city, much less their state. So when you expose them to the things that are outside of their scope, you could elevate their minds to grow and elevate, where they are. And, a lot of what violence is that lack of elevation, that lack of seeing what is on the outside. And, a big thing that everyone in this work, I'm sure is familiar with is that violence reproduces violence. The biggest perpetrators are victims. So when we don't have the resources for those victims, and we're not tackling their mental health issues, and we're not tackling the trauma that they see and the things that are dealt with, like we have at this age, especially with gun violence, we have kids who are 14, 13, 12, losing friends at that age. And like, how are they supposed to cope? Especially when they don't see themselves beyond that environment.
Okay, that was from a TikTok video, and of course, they were young people talking about the very subject we want to deal with today. So, Leah, introduce our guest, will you please?
Good morning. I am deeply honored to have these two young men present with us on today. One is truly young, too young, but anyway, I am happy to have these two young men with us on today, and none other than Councilman Vernon Tillage and James Cullen to talk to us about crime in the city of Portsmouth and crime prevention in the city of Portsmouth. A little bit about Mr. Vernon Tillage. Vernon Tillage is a lifelong citizen of the city of Portsmouth. Very short life. He's so young. The only bad thing about Vernon is that he's a graduate of Churchland High School. However,
That's not a bad thing.
we have grafted him into the Norcom family. He is an honorary Greyhound as well. He's a graduate of Old Dominion University. Upon graduating from ODU, he began his career as the Chief of Staff in the Virginia General Assembly and a regional outreach representative in the United States Senate. He currently serves as Community Affairs Coordinator, am I correct, Vernon, for Virginia Natural Gas
Yes.
at the age of 26. Vernon was elected to the Portsmouth School Board, becoming the youngest person in public service in the city of Portsmouth. He subsequently went on to win a seat on the Portsmouth City Council. Welcome, Vernon Tillage. The resume is long, so I'm abbreviating these resumes so that we can talk about what we've come to talk about on this morning. Joining Vernon Tillage this morning is my friend, Mr. James Cullen. James Jim Cullins. James is a career law enforcement executive. Um, he's a senior USCG officer, longtime community volunteer in Portsmouth, Virginia. He's the chair of multiple boards and commissions in the city of Portsmouth. I don't know how he and Kathleen does it, but I think they're on every board and commission in the city of Portsmouth. And he's also a first citizen of the city of Portsmouth for 2025. But the most important thing that James does for the city of Portsmouth, he gives us our hallmark moments on at the market at the farmers market in downtown Portsmouth and Old Town Portsmouth every Saturday from 10 until 2 p.m. So I want to welcome the two of you to Portsmouth Coffee Talk, and we're here today to talk about a critical issue. However, it seems as though these numbers are going down, and you can talk about that as we go on with the conversation. But I went on to, I know, James, you have recently been appointed as chair of the Crime Commission for the city of Portsmouth. And I Googled what are the cities with the highest crime rate in Virginia, and it came up Petersburg, Blackstone, Portsmouth. That's not good. When you're trying to recruit people to come into the city and they Google the city and this is what they get, that tells them, I'm not moving there. I'm not going to bring my family into that environment. It went on to say that a lot of violence is being perpetrated in the shipyard area. So maybe we can get into that a little later on as well. But the Crime Commission was formed, James and Vernon, whoever chooses. Vernon, if you'd like to give a statement before we go into the Crime Commission, you most certainly can. As a city councilman, we will give you that opportunity to make a statement first, if you so wish.
Got you. Well, good morning to everybody. So Portsmouth, as you made mention to, we do have a high crime rate. And that was one of the reasons for the formation of the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Commission, was to address the root causes of crime and how do we address the basic needs of people. As we all know, in cities such as Portsmouth, where we do have demographics that are different than other parts of the Commonwealth, it's imperative that we put into action programs that address the needs of our people. So the commission was proposed back in September of 2023. That was the thought behind it. And how can we get together a group of city peers to come together to help formulate strategies and to help to make proposals to city council and to the police department on how we can best combat not just crime, because the crime, when we think of crime, we think of the police department, right? But how do we create strategies and recommendations to council that address the overall well-being of a person, whether that's through health literacy, financial literacy, whether that's through connecting them with resources, also targeting certain areas in the community when it does come to crime, such as cameras and programming and things of that nature. And so that was the idea of this commission. The commission, like I said, was proposed in September of 2023. It didn't go into action until the latter part of 2024. There's been a couple of kinks here and there, but we're trying to iron those out so that we can, improve Portsmouth numbers, which we have done over the last 2 or 3 years.
Thank you, Councilman Tillage. I do see, as I was doing my research, I do see that the numbers are coming down. I'm glad, however, that you're also saying that not only are you addressing crime, but you're addressing mental health. You're addressing income insufficiency. You're addressing those things that may cause people to enter into the world of crime. So if you get to the root cause, then you can prevent the crime situations that are taking place in the city. So first you have to address those root causes, and I'm glad to see that. And Mr. Cullen, one thing that I got when I mentioned the Crime Commission to a lot of people, well, congratulations on your being appointed as the chairperson, was the people were saying, well, What are they doing? We haven't
Right.
heard anything. Why do they have this commission? What purpose does it serve? So maybe you can clarify some of those things that people are feeling about. Is this just another group that the city has put together and we're not going to get any results out of? So, James, I throw that ball into your park now.
Thank you, Ms. Leah. So first thing I want to do is in the comments, there's somebody named Alec. I apologize if I'm saying this wrong. It's Alec Lewis, and I don't know if that's being said correctly, but that's somebody who reached out to me last night, as a matter of fact, about a shooting and another homicide that happened yesterday in the South Side area. And it's interesting that you mentioned the when you did your own research on the statistics, that a lot of the violent crime that we have is in the area of the shipyard. So I'm gonna circle back to that, but probably the best way for people to try to look at where the crime commission fits into things versus the police department, because it's really easy for people to lump it all into one thing. You know, how come the crime commission didn't go out and do this, and how come the crime commission didn't do that? And I also appreciate the fact that we're saying crime commission versus task force. A lot of people have taken the word task force and just run with it, but it's actually the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Commission. So if you can imagine a timeline, and all the way to the right is like, for example, the homicide that I assume it's Ms. Lewis is talking about from yesterday. That's all the way to the right. That is the bang. That is the bad incident. That is the horrible thing that happens. That's where the police department gets involved, and hopefully in the area on the timeline which is close to the incident and immediately following up on the incident. The idea of a crime commission, a crime prevention commission, is to go to the left before the incident occurs, to the left on the timeline, and say what happened all the way back in that series of events that led to that problem happening. And it can go all the way back to, you know, like we talked about, income inequity. It can go down to the neighborhood that you grew up in. In that clip that Slim was playing, which I assume was somewhere in New York City, they talked about people who've never been outside of their borough or outside of their state, and we see that sort of thing, for example, in Portsmouth. So let me go back to the fact that you said that so many things seem to be shipyard, and Councilman Tillage talked about the unique situation that we're facing here in Portsmouth. Leah mentioned that I'm on several different boards. One of them is I'm the chair of the Military Affairs Committee. Yes, now as of last 2 weeks ago, the Crime Commission, and also the Parking Authority. So that lets me look at things several different ways. And one of the ways that I look at things is the history of the shipyard and the history of how it came to be and how some of our neighborhoods came to be, literally created by the federal government as segregated communities intended for shipyard construction, for surge construction around the world wars. They said, let's quickly build up neighborhoods that were never intended to be long-term neighborhoods, other than perhaps Craddock. But you had Craddock, Truxton, and then you had a whole bunch of other neighborhoods that were just essentially wartime barracks type housing. And then the ones that were family housing were a little bit more fancy, but not intended for long-term residents. And that's, for example, Dale Homes was wartime housing. So the war comes, the war goes, the surge of people disappears, the surge of people coming into the area disappears. And then all of a sudden the federal government hands that housing back to the city government and says, okay, this is yours. And the city, remember the time, of course, the city being very segregated said, what are we going to do with those poor people? Or if they wanted to be, you know, totally honest about it, what are we going to do with the black people? And they pushed them all into the former substandard housing areas that were, you know, the workers' barracks. And so now you've concentrated all of your low income and all of your low opportunity and your, you know, folks that unfortunately are literally being placed on the wrong side of the tracks. If you think about where Dale Homes sits, you know, near a river where it's swampy and there's mosquitoes, you know, on the wrong side of the highway off ramp and that kind of stuff. And you've got kids that don't leave that neighborhood and don't get to see anything else outside of their neighborhood unless they cut across the train tracks behind the Harley Davidson dealership, you know, to to walk up to, the Midtown Shopping Center. So we've created this situation. When I say we, I mean, the people that came before us in positions of responsibility have created these scenarios. And we've created a situation where people only know what they know from those who they grow up around, or the people who they grow up around, which in many cases is a single parent who has to, work, many hours of the day to try to, just make ends meet. And the kids don't have the supervision and the peers who are engaged in other types of activities to try to help them steer away from this kind of stuff. So I'm giving you one example, but we're talking so far left on the timeline now. And so solutions that we may be looking at, we're talking about the Crime Commission. We're supposed to advise the city government and advise the city council. So one of the things, and I'm making this up, this is not an official position by any means, but we might be saying we need to get rid of low-income housing projects, and we need to distribute housing equitably among new projects. As an example, okay, if you've got a new project that has 100 units in it, X many of those units might be for low income. Not concentrate everybody in just one spot, which has been proven time and time across the country to create all the factors that lead to violent crime down the road, or people leading into crime that leads to drugs, and so on and so forth. So I could go on and on about it, but the point is, the Crime Commission's job is to look way to the left and say, is it nutrition? Is it daycare? Is it pre-K care? Is it additional programs in the evenings for recreation for kids? Is it, who knows? But what are the things that we can do upstream of the bang, upstream of the crisis, upstream of the problem that takes two people out of society, both the shooter and the person who's been killed? How do we go to the left and say, where's the best place to invest long term, to try to stop these problems before they happen? The police department is closer to the incident and following up and investigating. But the concept of the Crime Commission, if I understand it, and I'll allow Councilman Tillage to correct me, but the idea that his vision was to look all the way to the left and say, how do we try to, in the long term, address the inequities and the problems that have led to us getting to where we're at right now? Because we're on the receiving end of a conveyor belt that started generations ago.
Councilman Tillage?
Yeah, to Mr. Cullen's point, the what people have to understand is that the Crime Gun Violence Prevention Commission is not to substitute the police. That right. Is definitely not our job. The job of the commission is not to, number one, is not to do investigations. That belongs to our police department, as well as our other law enforcement agencies in the city. To his point, our job is to, when I say our, I mean the commission's job, is to look at those root causes of crime, being able to address, okay, what are the hot spots of the city, which we've been able to identify not only through the commission, but also through the Harvard Bloomberg initiative that was done a couple of years ago. And Ms. Stith, I believe that you were on that task force at that time.
I was.
And one of the takeaways and the suggestions from that study was to create such a task force, to continue that work, to continue to identify, to be able to connect resources, and to be able to provide those recommendations back to council. When I met with the commission a few months ago, I told them to think of the commission as being a capstone project, where we are able to gather the data, you're able to analyze that data, and based on the analyzation of that data, you're able to then make your recommendation, that presentation to council. And we have to be very realistic too. You're not going to get all the information within a 6-month span time, even a 1-year span time. It's going to be an ongoing living commission that's going to continue to evolve and to be able to address those needs. But also, I just looked at my phone as well, and I just saw a message from Ms. Lewis as well, and I want to I want to first extend my condolences to her, family, and the friends of that individual who did lose their life a couple of days ago. And I want them to know that the city is not throwing this under the rug. We are taking all situations such as this very seriously, and that all lives do matter here in the city of Portsmouth.
And let me ask a question. I guess this would go to James Cullen as the new chairman now. I saw the last meeting when y'all made the transition of chairmans, and I sensed sort of a frustration in you and maybe in some of the other commission members. I know I was watching and tracking when it first started, and I know being on several commissions myself, especially ones that are brand new, created for a specific task. And I'm glad you changed that name to commission. That's what I was using, but then I saw it printed other places, task force. And to me, task force is something temporary, and a commission is there, as long as you need it. But I sense that frustration, and I know in the beginning what people were seeing and say, "What are y'all doing?" It takes a while for a new commission. First the commissioners have to get to know each other and get to know where they are and where they stand. But what frustrated me as time went on, the months went on, it seemed like each month I watched it. It was the same thing, and you didn't see people attending the meetings. I think going forward, and I think you all probably know that you need to take your meetings into these communities where you probably will see more participation there. But I said all that to say, have you all, or going forward, one of the things that you all would do is identify the root causes of the problem that are specific to Portsmouth. I know root problems are out there about human behavior, and we listened to that audio about New York, which is, it's going on in all the cities, but identifying root issues that are specific to Portsmouth and some of the and James, you kind of touched on some of that, the locations of some of our neighborhoods, and hopefully we're getting past that with restructuring some of those neighborhoods. But what about? I'm just thinking going forward. The first thing that you all do, have you done it yet? Identify the root problems specific to Portsmouth.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have been waiting on, and I'm not sure what the current status is of it, but a formal and trained advisor or advisory group to try to guide us in some of the research and analysis of research.
You're talking about in a professional capacity, right?
Correct. And I know that one of the problems and one of the frustrations over the past year had been there was a request for proposals that went out, I believe, or a solicitation of some type for a professional contract, and we received exactly 0 bids nationwide. And again, Councilman Tillage, correct me because you're closer to that process, but I believe we received no bids, and then we resolicited, and we may be going to like a single source contract, and I'm not positive, so I don't want to misspeak on that one.
Yeah. So the first time it went out, the city received one solicitation bid. That one did not meet the specifications and the details that were needed for the commission. It was then reopened a second time, and we received 0 responses. So based on that, we were then connected with an organization that does this type of work out of Chicago. And so they have been in communication and are in communication as we speak with city management to be able to determine what this program can and should look like. So we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel through that process.
And so what about the college and universities that are local that might have departments?
Really bringing that.
He's still talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
James
Go ahead.
I mean, it's Councilman Vernon Tillage. Go ahead, Vernon.
Yeah. Oh, no,
please excuse me.
No, you're right. We'll be once we get them on board, we'll be able to have that guidance and that framework I shall say, that framework that can help the commission to be able to build upon.
Go ahead, James.
Oh,
Slim
I was
Overton.
mentioning about the college and universities. Do they receive the bids? I don't know how that works with universities like that, but you had those departments of psychology at ODU and Norfolk State, and they study human behavior, and even some of the students come from some of those environments, that are studying that. Seems like that would be something that would be advantageous to the commission as far as getting information and also helping the students, of course, but getting the information, getting raw information from a local uh, organization, university. Is that something that's
Yeah.
considered as well, or you just want to go totally, excuse me, totally the professional route?
Oh no, absolutely not. We definitely are. We've definitely looked at many different options when it comes to local universities and local partners. And I will say, and I'm proud to say, that the city of Portsmouth does partner with both of those universities, to include others, when it comes to not just programming for the Crime and Gun Violence Prevention Commission, but with our behavioral healthcare services, with social services, with the respected organizations in which those students are studying. I believe we even have some that even partner with our law enforcement teams as well. So we have those established relationships. Not always do the current situations align with the current needs of what we're looking for, but we do have those established relationships throughout the city.
Let me ask you also, I know you all meet in the city council chambers, but has the commission considered taking your meetings into the community? Meeting with the citizens, allowing the citizens. A lot of times you get a lot of information from the citizens who are more than willing to share information. Many of them can't get down to City Hall. So are you considering possibly going into each of the communities and giving the citizens an opportunity to share information with you on their thoughts and ideas? Because many of them have ideas that really will address some of the situations that are going on. Now, I know that when I was a part of the Bloomberg study, we were primarily looking at violence and youth. And what we did, we went to the schools and we met with the young people to give them an opportunity to share with us what their thoughts and ideas were about the crime that was being committed, who was involved in the crime, and also they gave some good suggestions as to ways in which we could work at the possibilities of eliminating that crime within their environment. Are you all considering going out into the community as opposed to constantly meeting down at City Hall?
Right. So there's a mixture. There's two sides to that. Until now, and I say this prior to tonight's meeting, until now we had voted to, or I should say the commission and commissioners who were in place at the time had voted to not have public comment at our meetings. So at that point, if you're not going to let anybody comment, we can be practically anywhere. Exactly. So I'll tip my hand and say I'm going to open that up again tonight for reconsideration, because having public comment section in a meeting is important. And I'll let the new slate of people decide, do we want to go forward with the public comment section? So that'll be something to vote on this evening. Or at least I will ask for a vote on that this evening. The other part of it is the community engagement committee. Well, I'm sorry. The other part of it is the fact that you have recording and notice requirements. And I know that our public relations and community affairs staff, I'm talking about from the city, who have to record this, give notice in advance, put recording equipment in place and all that stuff for a public meeting. I know it's a little bit more of a lift for them than to do it in a place that is already wired. Literally, like you'll see the city council meeting either in that round room or you'll see them meeting in that other main council chambers, because it's already got the cameras, it's already got the audio, and they have to put that stuff up for public access, live. It's not saying it couldn't be done, but I know that it is more of a lift on the city staff to physically set up, let's say, a rec center or something like that. I saw what they did, what they had to do when they set up for the Greenville study. There was a significant amount of work that the city had to put into to convert a gymnasium into a sound studio, basically, for that. So it's not outside the realm of possibility. But the other thing that I've learned from going to a lot of different meetings meetings with the public, is that people don't want to raise their hand necessarily and talk to you in front of the group, but they will take you aside after the group, and they'll say, I've thought about, once the lights are turned off and once the crowd is gone, they'll talk to you and say, here's the issue, or here's the problem, or here's the thing that I have a concern about. So the approach that I want to continue with is having members attending every possible civic league meeting, tenants association meeting, any other gathering of concerned citizens, to say, hey, I know that the police department was here at the beginning of the meeting to read you crime statistics and to hear about any issues or problems, but there may be some of you who don't want to necessarily raise your hand in front of the group to talk about, that abandoned house over there that seems to have people coming and going from it, and there may be something going on in there, that sort of thing. I've gotten a lot of good information from people after the Civic League meeting, during the coffee and donuts part of it, or what have you. And I know that that's something that we want to not only continue, but expand upon, having members of the Crime Commission present at all of those meetings for just that purpose, to have that candid feedback that people don't want to say in front of a group of other people.
Yeah, I think that's really thinking outside of the box, because the process and the protocols for official meetings can be, problematic if you're trying to get information out. And I can remember being on the Economic Development Authority, and we would break up and go to certain businesses for business retention and make sure that they knew we were there. And a lot of people might not be aware of the commission and who they can go to and talk to. And there are great opportunities to do exactly like you said, where people can pull you aside, as opposed to a general meeting where they might be a little hesitant about speaking out in public for fear of retaliation or something like that. So.
Or just, stop snitching, or who are you? Why don't you mind your own business? That kind of stuff that people will get. But the reality is they've identified a real problem that's impacting that neighborhood or that tenants group or whoever it is.
James or Vernon.
And to that point,
Go ahead, Vernon.
No, so to that point, the community engagement committee, the idea of the community engagement committee is to be able to do that that was just talked about. It is to be the arms and legs of the commission, because as we know, when you're in meetings, the meetings are only but so long, and during those meetings, they are to be working meetings, having the conversations about the data, having the conversations about the analytics that have been found, how we can come up with recommendations. And so that community engagement piece is really, really important for them to be able to be meeting outside of that one Monday a month meeting, and being able to connect with community stakeholder groups, civic leagues, and things throughout that time, and then bringing that back on that Monday meeting to have those conversations. Because while it's very important to hear from the public to the points that have been shared, doing that in an open meeting is not always the best, because number one, people don't like to have their business on camera. They don't like to they don't want to tell their experiences all the time in public settings. So I think it's really good to be able to go out to these groups, then bring that information back on that Monday, because if not, you're going to be spending that entire Monday meeting just having open dialogue, and just the wheels continue just to spin. So the community engagement piece is very important, and I will say that I believe Mr. Cullen, he's been leading that over the last year, and it is very crucial. And so, we want the public to be a part. We want the public to know that this commission is here,
Exactly.
but then invite the commission out to come meet with your group if you have suggestions outside of that Monday meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'll offer everybody who's watching to please, reach out to me, or you can reach me if you don't have my contact info. I'll put it up here. It's a Cullen J, CULLENJ at portsmouthva.gov, CULLENJ at portsmouthva.gov. If you have some sort of a group, and it doesn't have to be a formal group, any sort of, it could be 3 or 4, concerned people living in the same, block. If you've got issues or questions, please reach out, because I'll be happy to come out and sit down with you and find out what is impacting your quality of life and what's impacting your neighborhood, especially things that you think are long-term issues and problems that you can see impacting the kids in your neighborhood and leading them down the wrong path.
James, can I ask, one person wanted to know, I guess primarily, who decides who's going to serve on the task force? How is that decision made, and who makes that decision?
That'll be the personnel committee or commission. I can't remember what they call themselves. The personnel, and Councilman Tillage can tell me the correct nomenclature, but it is a team within the city council who appoints people to all different boards and commissions.
And I also like to say too, you heard me say a lot, be aware, be involved. Be aware, be informed, and be involved. I think it's a responsibility of the citizens as well to be aware. I'm looking at a chart here from the police department where it shows particular incidents and the last 365 days, and I'm looking at London Oaks, where people see they think they have more incidents in the city, but the murders are happening elsewhere.
Yes.
Where it's showing where the actual murders are, and people are looking at London Oaks and say, okay, it's bad because you have a lot of incidents, and you might have more 1 or 2 murders in your own neighborhood and not be aware, but you're paying attention and putting down London Oaks. So it's a certain amount of responsibility we must have in order to know exactly what's going on, and I think once you know what's going on, especially in your neighborhood, there's probably be more attendance to, at least to your civic leagues, where you can speak up more freely as opposed to the official meetings. So I'm just looking at, go to your police department website and make sure you inform yourself about certain things. You can't rely totally on the commission, the members of the commission, to do all the work for you. The police department as well as the commission needs the help of the citizens. So that's being totally aware of what's going on in your neighborhood and not looking at other neighborhoods thinking everything is happening there and not in your backyard. That's just my point looking at it.
So now, go ahead, James.
Ms.
Go ahead, Jim.
One of the things that I hear from people, unfortunately, is exactly what Slim was just saying, is that you'll get people from different sections of the city saying, well, it's not happening in my neighborhood, so it's not my problem. And I was having a conversation yesterday with Commissioner Redmond from the Crime Commission, and the question was, how do we combat people who are just like, it's not happening in my front yard, so it's not my problem. And what I would say to any citizen of Portsmouth is, number one, the loss of any of us, and us means all of us in Portsmouth, the loss of any of us diminishes all of us. It hurts all of us. But even if you're not looking at it for the right reasons, which is that the loss of any human life is horrible, that's the right way to look at it. But even if you're that mercenary about it, you say, I don't care because it's not happening to me or my family. Okay, well, it impacts your property. It impacts your property value. It impacts the quality of your schools. It impacts all of the things. So even if you're, I'm not calling out any individual, but if you're that heartless or selfish as to say, I don't care, it didn't happen in front of my house. Well, it just brought down the value of your house. And
Mhm.
from a taxpayer standpoint, if that's all you care about, I think the numbers I've heard around recently, it averages the cost to the citizens of Portsmouth for every homicide is somewhere between 1.3 and 1.7 million dollars, as far as the amount of resources that are expended to respond to it, to investigate it, and also the overall impact on property values citywide, businesses citywide. And again, Councilman Telge, you've got more recent numbers, but I think it was between 1.3 and 1.7 million dollars financial impact to the city per homicide. It affects all of us whether or not we think it does.
Do you have the full complement of the commission right now? Because I see people, saw someone comment that they would
Yes, they
love to
want to keep
serve, but
going. Yes, they want to serve.
Yes.
All right.
So the people can apply on the city's website on our board and commissions page, just like you would apply for any other board and commission. It is we accept applications on a rotating basis. It stays open the entire year, 365, 24/7. And so if people are interested in applying, please go to the city's website to apply. Now, we don't, just because you apply does not always mean that you'll make it, because there's only but so many seats, and each seat has a term, shall I say. And so, but we encourage you to check that out. And there's not just this board that's available. There's numerous other boards that help to also play a role in the crime as well, because you're helping to gather information from a certain department that department may be feeding information into the crime commission. So there's other ways to get involved, not just specifically this one board.
Right.
How many
And
seats are there on the crime commission, James? How many seats are there, and have they all been filled?
I believe we're at 9.
And you can have how many?
9. And
9.
I believe it's 9. And the piece of paper that had that on just fell, and I'm not going to go bend over and pick it up and let you look at the top of my head. But I believe that the city code calls for 9 members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I may be wrong. Maybe it's 7. But either way, I know that we're currently. Is it 9? Okay. So.
Yes.
But the other thing is that we have, in addition to the commissioners themselves, each of them is in charge of, not each of them, 4 of them are in charge of other smaller committees, or actually larger committees in some cases, that are the ones doing the actual legwork. So if someone's like, I want to be a commissioner, please also consider, for the exact same pay, by the way, which is 0, you can be but we'll double your pay. We'll double your pay if we put you on one of these committees. You'll get 0 twice a month, and you can be on one of the committees that is actually doing the engagement, that is actually going to be looking at the data and this kind of stuff. So I have in community engagement, I've got 5 members right now who. They're doing it for the right reasons, but also for their own sake. You've got there's a couple of young people who are on that committee who had never thought of doing anything like this before, but they're getting insights into their own neighborhoods, into the areas outside of their neighborhoods, or in the case of, I've got one young person who's a military member. They're learning a lot about the host city that they happen to find themselves in. It's somebody from California, but here he is, in Portsmouth, and he's learning a lot about the city by being a member of this committee, and people know that he's involved in this, and so he has conversations with folks that he otherwise wouldn't have, and it's helping him become more rounded as a person. And that's the kind of stuff that gets people to put roots down in our community, because they start to care, and they become invested. So the point is, for anybody who is looking to get involved and looking to help in some way, you can become a commissioner, which is the once a month meetings that you see on the video. but you can also become a committee member in 4 different areas: data and metrics, intervention, resource allocation, and community engagement.
And how does the commission plan to message what's taking place so the public can know that you're not just meeting for the sake of meeting? How is this information going to get out to the public so they can know what it is you're studying, and what impact is it going to have upon the city? What impact is it going to have upon the citizens? How do you plan to get that information out to the citizens so they can know what's taking place?
All right, so we do an annual report, but in my opinion, that's not enough to.
Not enough.
Right, exactly. So we do an annual report, but at each meeting, I believe we have an obligation to be talking about what it is that we're working on and what the status is of that, but also the idea of folks who are involved in community engagement. Those committee members have the opportunity to go out there and give that information at any meeting that they attend of citizen groups, tenant groups, the 4 neighbors around a cup of coffee, whatever it may be. They've got the opportunity to say, here's who we are, here's what we're working on right now, here's where we stand in that, and is there anything that you'd like to let us know about your neighborhood that's specific? So each of them can become a rebroadcaster, a broadcaster or a rebroadcaster of information. And especially, and I'll say it again because we talked about it at the top of the show, but I think it's important to recap for those who tuned in late, especially being able to explain where we stand in the timeline, that the commission is working on the long-term stuff, which may mean, and I'll go back to the housing example. If you find that 5 years from now, a new housing development has, requirements placed upon it that somebody has to have a certain percentage of lower income or folks with income challenges placed into it as part of the approval of the deal, that may be an example of something that the Crime Commission put into motion years before. So for the immediate impact stuff, you're looking at the police department. They're the ones that are all the way on the right of the timeline. All the way to the left is things like, should there continue to be a particular housing project? Should there be more recreation centers? Should there be, as we work on this new waterfront redevelopment and things like that, how should that look to try to make it something that's available and accessible to every member of our city? Of every income level and every extraction. So you won't see the quick, we're not the SWAT team. We're not going to rush in and address the crisis that's happening right this second. But what we are going to do is try to address the long-term things that have festered. And so, it's kind of like growing a tree is probably the best way to describe it. If you plant the seed in the ground and you see a little teeny shoot, you're like, well, that's not very impressive. But you come back and, down the road and you see an oak and you're like, well, that's pretty impressive. But it doesn't happen immediately. It happens over time. And, the police department is the ones responsible for the short-term stuff. This is a slow motion commission, probably is the best way to describe it, whose job is to put things into motion, in some cases behind the scenes by placing pressure on various aspects of city government and other non-government organizations, or formally making recommendations and saying, I feel that you should, we, the commission, feel that you should, whatever we think is in the best interest of crime reduction and violence prevention, especially gun violence prevention here in the city.
But I want to thank you all for coming on. We still have time left, but I want to thank you for coming on because the purpose of doing this was to let people know exactly what the commission was responsible for. And as I said earlier, I like taking that task force off because that sounds like more on the police side, task force, and people will be expecting you all, you, James, to be out there maybe chasing down people, but the commission, is something where, even if the composition of the council changes, you have something written in stone as far as a commission that mission will continue on, even though the council members might have, certain influences over the commission, but the basic uh, duties of that commission are set in stone, and you know we can look forward to long-term results, hopefully, and
Exactly.
some short-term
Right.
results on your
Right.
part. So,
Yeah. So right now, as written, as codified, in city code, we are an advisory commission.
right.
Now, whether that ripens, we'll see what happens over time. You've got other commissions and authorities, here in the city that are controlling budgets or that are raising monies or that are um, voting on expenditures. Right now, if we were to vote on something, it would be voting on recommendations. Like I may make a recommendation at tonight's meeting, or I may ask for a motion for a recommendation on tonight's meeting. All that will come out of it, as it's currently structured, is a recommendation that that will go to the city manager, that will go to city council, and then they're the mechanism that puts it in place. Whether this matures into something like, say, um, you can think of other commissions and authorities. I don't want to name anyone specifically, but in the city that are actually voting, we are going to spend X amount of dollars on this particular project, or we're going to not approve this other project, or whatever it may be. Currently we're an advisory committee or commission, but whether this ripens into something that actually is saying we feel that this portion of the budget should be spent on this particular intervention, like pre-K daycare for everybody, or something like that, and this amount of money is going to go to it. I'm making that up. That's not something that we're actively moving toward, but I'm giving it as an example. Whether we go in that direction or not, time will tell. But right now we're trying to gather the bigger picture and be able to bring to the attention of city government and the city council. We find that all of our problems are associated with, in the city, are associated with blank. And then, we recommend that you do the following things to address blank, whatever that may be. I hope that makes sense.
Now, Vernon, are you the council rep on the crime commission?
One of two. He's one of two. So
myself and Councilman
Councilman
Hugel, we serve as the liaison.
I'm sorry, you said yourself and who else?
Councilman Hugel.
Councilman
Okay,
Hugel.
Okay.
Yep. And we usually have the city manager in attendance.
Yeah, we serve as the liaisons.
Okay. And of course, you all go back and report back to council what has taken place with the commission. I think we have a delayed reaction.
Absolutely. And I want people to clear to the people is crime is the solution to crime is not a one size fits all approach. No. If it was a one size fits all approach, there would be no crime. And that's not just in the city of Portsmouth, that would be across the nation. Unfortunately, there are different variables that play into crime, and the city of Portsmouth is working diligently to make the community safer. The police department, they are doing their job in ensuring that what they're doing is effective. Our behavioral health care department is working. Social services department is working. The men and women of the city of Portsmouth are working diligently to improve the safety in the city. As May mentioned, when I first ran for city council in 2022, we had 45 plus homicides in 2022. In 2024, we ended last year with, I believe it was in the low, which is still high, and I want to be very clear, it's high. It was in the lower 30s. This year, we are now, I think we're at 18, 19, which once again is still very high. One is too many, but the city of Portsmouth is working diligently to get those numbers down. And over the last 2 to 3 years, we have seen a almost 50% decrease in those numbers. In addition, we've seen a 17% decrease when it comes to overall crime throughout the city. So the men and women of our city are working diligently. Our volunteers who are serving on these commissions are working diligently. And I ask the citizens of Portsmouth, let's please get involved. Find ways to sign up. Find ways to be able to tell your story. We don't want to put anybody in jeopardy. If you want to have a conversation with myself, Mr. Cullen, anybody on the commission, with members of City Council, reach out to us. Let's have that conversation and see how we can better address your community. It was made mention earlier about the map that the police department has put out to be able to show where some different hot spots are. To the point, Portsmouth gets this bad rep of being this very violent, dangerous city. Slim, Ms. Stith, you two have lived in Portsmouth for decades. You are Portsmouth. And we know that the stories that are portrayed, while we know that some of them are very real, we also know a lot of what is put into the public eye is exacerbated. And as a city, we have to do a better job.
Exactly.
Telling our story, what is happening, but that also comes with us being holding ourselves accountable and being effective in our communication on how we're going to address these things. And so we're working on those things as well. So we're trying to, number one, clean up our streets. And this city council has made it a top priority that public safety is our number one priority. We're going to do everything we can to ensure the safety of our citizens. And we're going to also make sure that we are held responsible. And also, we're going to hold other people responsible when you put Portsmouth in a bad light. And that is what we're tackling. And I'm very optimistic in the way in which we're moving. We still got some roadblocks. We still have some things that I'm not proud of that are happening, but we're working to solve them. And I want everybody in the city to know that. And like I said, reach out to us on City Council, reach out to our crime commission, and let your voice be heard so we can make this a government that works for everybody, not just a select few.
You know,
Indeed, and it's a process. And we here at Portsmouth Coffee Talk offer you this platform anytime you want to come on as a commission or individual members or council members as well to share information, updates, and also hear from the citizens. You see a lot of people made their comments and we sort of put them out there for everybody to see. So this is another one of those areas where where you can come and sort of share information and get feedback from actual citizens.
You know, and the thing that I saw upon doing my research, one thing that the police department stated, and once again, it takes all of us to correct the situation that's taking place to end crime in the city of Portsmouth. But one thing the local police attributed the decrease in the crime rate in Portsmouth was due to community outreach, anti-theft efforts, and public education. Public education is important. People need to hear and to know what's taking place. And that will end a lot of the feelings that people have about crime in Portsmouth. If you just talk to them, tell them what's going on, let them know what's taking place. How can I help to eliminate some of the problems that we see within the city? And once we start talking to each other, as opposed to talking at each other, we can make a difference. So, but we all have to come together. It's not a crime commission's effort. It's not the city councilman's effort. It's not the city managers or the police department or the sheriff department or whomever. We all have to come together and work together as a team if we are to change these stats on crime. And people Googling Portsmouth like I did, and it comes up saying, oh, high crime area, number 3 in the state of Virginia. We have to get rid of that so that we can attract people coming into the city who has something to invest in the city and would like to be a part of the city. So I want to commend you all on the work that you're doing. And Mr. Collins, I hope that the commission would get the information out there to the public uh, through the council or through whomever, so they can know that there are efforts taking place in order to reduce crime in the city of Portsmouth. Vernon, I appreciate all that you do, your efforts in the city of Portsmouth, and you and James, you all are amazing young men, and you can make a difference just by engaging those citizens and making them a part of the team. Don't leave them outside of the circle. Bring them into the circle so they can be a part of that team to help to eliminate crime in the city of Portsmouth. So I want to thank both of you so very much for coming on. Slim.
Yeah, and I like to acknowledge the people that are out there with the boots on the ground without the fans, out there in the trenches, out there in the trenches, in the problem areas, individuals and groups that some people talk about and say they in there, for their own self rewards. No, those people are out there because they care, and they're out there doing work that a lot of people will not do or don't have the nerve or the ability to do. So it's a collective effort from all of us. So we need to recognize that and make sure that we come out of this thing on. I mean, nothing's going to be perfect. I don't think we ever get down to zero, realistically. But as much as we can keep that down. I mean, Vernon. I mean, from 45 to all the numbers you gave.
Exactly.
I mean that's amazing. That has to show that it's been some kind of effort on a lot of people's part in order to make this a safer city. And you're right. We have to control our own narrative when we talk about our city. We can't be within the city, putting down the city.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And we see that a lot. A lot of it comes from within. And so, but anyway, we want to thank you again for coming on, and we look forward to you coming back again. And we appreciate you getting up early. I know it was early, but it is what it is, y'all. Thanks, everybody. And
did you have any
like for
closing
you
statements, Slim, before we go off? Did
Sure, go ahead.
Either of you have any closing statements before we end the show?
I guess I'll say something, then I'll throw it to Councilman Tillage. But I echo everything that both of you just said, and it is especially important that we, as a community, recognize what we are up against. And by that, I'm saying that back in the day, the community was one of the largest voices that would impact a young person. But now we're competing with the internet. We're competing with videos. We're competing with violent video games. We're competing with violent imagery. We're competing with signaling and messaging, which is profiting other people far away from our city. That is leading, especially young people, to feel that it's almost an expectation that they're going to respond to any insults with violence, or they're going to respond to and so it's crucial at this point that we understand the role that every single person in our city plays in trying to counter those negative influences. So Ms. Leah, what you said is right on the money, how important it is for us to be speaking up and to be trying to mentor young people as you do. Every time I see you, you're just so involved and have been for decades in mentoring young people. But that kind of thing is more important than ever, because you're competing with not just the voices up and down the block. You're competing with people coming from, in some cases, outside the country, sending imagery and money and philosophies that are intended to turn young people against each other. And that's a whole nother show we could talk about. And so thank you to both of you, Slim, for your whole career of caring about the city of Portsmouth and for caring about its people. And both of you have lived the arc of some of the things that we've described, some of the the systemic issues that we're fighting today, those were things.
Is that a nice way of calling us old?
Well, she called me a young man. So she called me a young man, so I'm going to go with that.
Well, I accept older, not old, older. because we
mature
all
and
get older. So
we're all mature and experienced. And I toss it to Councilman Tillage. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Vernon?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Most definitely. Most definitely. Yes. Well, I want to thank you, Slim, and thank you, Ms. Stith, for having us on today to be able to talk about this topic, for us to be able to, number one, educate the community on what's happening, but also on how they can get involved. Portsmouth is near and dear to me, is near and dear to you all, and we have to do a better job as working together as one team. There's no need for us to go over here and reinvent the wheel, or go over here and reinvent the wheel. Come together, roll the wheel that's already together, and let's get things moving. And Portsmouth, I can actually say, is moving. We're moving in a direction of positivity. We're moving in a direction of decreasing numbers, but it's going to take a collective effort. And just because it's not happening in your backyard does not mean you're not needed. Just because it's not happening in your backyard does not mean you get to sit back and be quiet. We need your voice. We need you to be a part of this process, because ultimately we're taking care of the people of Portsmouth, the human aspect. And sometimes we forget that because we get so caught up in numbers. We forget that each number represents life. It represents an individual. And thanks to the work that Mr. Cullen's doing, thanks to the work that many of our commissioners are doing, we're able to take those numbers and relate them to people. And that's why we do this holistic approach to the human life. Because once again, the commission is not here to substitute the police department. We're not here to substitute any other law enforcement agency. We cannot do that, and that's not our intention. Our intention is to be able to work alongside them, to be able to get the data that they have, for us to be able to look over and say, hey, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this program here? And that's the mission of this task force. And we have made great strides, but we also have a long way to continue to go. But I'm very optimistic that we're going to work that way. And I think I just saw, as a Nisi artist, her comment about striving to zero. And that is our goal. Our goal is
get low, strive to zero.
To ensure that
I think I'm going to use that.
Get low, strive to zero. Yes, absolutely. We're going to continue to work to make sure that only our homicides are down to zero, but make sure that our strive is to make sure our crime as a whole is down to zero. So thank you too for all that you all do in the community to help us to continue to get our message out, to be able to educate people, because that is key, is making sure that people are educated. And especially in today's world, more than ever, when you have all this fake news going on and AI generated things on social media, people click on this clickbait and they believe it's real. Exactly. And most of it is far from the truth. So thank you all for allowing people like myself and Mr. Cullen to be able to come on and to actually share real stories, real facts of what's happening.
And Vernon and Jim, the most important thing is, as I tell my children daily, until the lion can tell his story, the hunter will always be the hero. So it's important that you learn to tell your story. If you don't tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you. So tell your story. Put your truths out there so people can know what's going on. But I thank you, Slim, for this avenue that we have, that we can share with the public what's taking place in the city of Portsmouth. Thank you guys very much.
Yes. And before we go, I give a shout out to Dale Michael Thomas, who's one of my Virginia Union classmates and out of Richmond. He lives in Chesterfield, but he's a probation officer. And I'm sure he's watching this show, particularly because they have some of the same issues in the area he comes from. So shout out to you, Dale, and what you do in your profession. Okay, everybody, take care. And remember to subscribe and make your comments even during the replay. And we'll see you next time.
Don't forget to go to YouTube. If you missed a portion of the show, go to
Be our guest.